Hey, welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is your host, Mongo Slade. So we're going to kick off Royal Rumble week with analysis of the 2021 Royal Rumble. This will not be a prediction video. This will just be me talking about the potential winners of the Royal Rumble match. And today we're going to start with the men's Royal Rumble. So I'm not going to go through all of the people who have declared. Simply it's too many names. Also, it is going to be a whole lot of, maybe quite a few surprises. And I don't want to try to predict surprises either. But there are some people, a certain set of guys that are coming through as a serious threat in the Royal Rumble. And these are guys worth talking about because there's more than 30 people on the roster. So I whittled it down to about 10. About 10 guys. Some of them are long shots, but they have storylines either with the champion or they have potential to go forward. And let's go through those now. So I put my top 5 guys that are most likely to win the Royal Rumble are Randy Orton, Big E, Keith Lee, The Fiend, or Daniel Bryan. Those are the top 5 guys. Now, if you've been paying attention or you know anything about wrestling, you could pretty much X out Orton and The Fiend, right? They're pretty much going to take each other out. Now, I likely do believe that The Fiend will probably return just for the purpose of eliminating Randy Orton and maybe eliminate himself at the same time. Maybe they'll do something slick where The Fiend pulls Randy Orton into the ring or something like that. They'll do something creepy in order to get rid of him. Maybe The Fiend won't even be an actual entrant, but will interfere. But I just had this idea that I think he's going to be in it. And nobody would be angry if The Fiend won the Royal Rumble. Nobody would be upset. But I think there would be a lot of head scratching because they would be like, well, does he really need it? You can use The Fiend to fill out one of the days on the card. Whereas The Fiend is a guy who doesn't need a belt. He doesn't need to be the champion. So you can kind of take him out as well. And Randy has won 2 already. I don't really think you need to see Randy versus Roman or Randy versus McIntyre going into WrestleMania. So we can kind of count those guys out. Daniel Bryan, Keith Lee, and Big E are 3 very, very tough choices. Nobody would complain about either one of those guys winning. I think people would be happiest with Big E winning. I think he's the sort of the sympathetic favorite because Daniel Bryan's done everything already. And Keith Lee, well, he hasn't been around that long. Most people like Keith Lee, but they're not emotionally attached to him just yet. I think that people would be excited if Keith Lee won. And they would say to themselves, like, holy shit, Keith Lee is going to be the champion. Why else would he be in this Royal Rumble? Why else would he win it if he's not going to win the title? And I think similarly, Big E will have the same reaction if, Big E's just going to be the champion if he wins the Royal Rumble. Now, it's a toss-up between those two. I do believe that if you put a gun to my head and say, make a choice, my choice would be Big E. But they've been telling this story with Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan is also a sympathetic character because he's already said numerous times this is his last run. He's not going to be going for much longer. He wants to be a full-time dad, part-time wrestler. And because Daniel Bryan has that sort of attitude, I don't see him putting himself over in the Royal Rumble. He'll probably have to get forced to do that. But I still think the likelihood of him winning is pretty high. Or either that or just using him as bait to get people to get really excited for the match. But I do think that Daniel Bryan winning wouldn't upset anybody. But I think a lot of people would feel like, okay, it would probably be better if it was someone else. But I don't think anybody would be upset. So there's a long list of long shots who are, guys who are probably likely going to be in the match or surprises and would probably piss people off if they won. Number 1, Brock Lesnar. If Brock returned, people would be excited. If Brock won, people would be furious. The internet would shake until there's people with like a collective concussion if Brock was to return and win the Royal Rumble. And me, as a troll, I would love it. I would be thrilled that Brock would come back and piss off so many people by winning the Royal Rumble in his first match back. But I don't think it's going to happen. Not because I don't think Brock is going to be in it. I do think Brock will probably be in it. I think they'll probably spin Brock's match out of this if he does return. I just don't think that they're going to... Brock doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble. And the Royal Rumble doesn't really need Brock, if we're being honest. There's enough people in this match to tell a story and to build a feud and build feuds without blowing it for Brock. Another one is AJ Styles. He is sort of being the gatekeeper. He's the guy that all of these, Gulak and Ricochet have tried to beat in order to get into the Royal Rumble. So they're building up AJ Styles as being an important person in this Royal Rumble match. But AJ Styles is over the age of 40. He doesn't really need to win the Royal Rumble because he's AJ Styles, similar to Brock Lesnar. Besides, what do? You have AJ versus Roman? That would be great. That would be fantastic, but they're both heels. AJ versus McIntyre, you can run that back. That would be great, but they just had a match in December. So you don't really need to put it on AJ Styles either. AJ doesn't really need it. Number 3, and I think this is also a very good choice, is Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley is a very good choice if you're going to go with, diversity, right? It just feels like there's going to be a brother winning this Royal Rumble. And Lashley could be the guy. Lashley is over the age of 40, but he's never been a world champion. It's a match that a guy his size could easily win and look great, and it'll look fantastic on his resume. He hasn't wrestled Drew McIntyre in a long time, and he hasn't wrestled Roman in a long time either. If Lashley was to win, he would likely have to challenge McIntyre, which would be great, and he would definitely have to win. But he is the United States champion. So you have to ask the question of, well, all right, similar to Big E, what are you going to do with the mid-card title? You're just going to have him drop it or give it away or what? What are we going to do in order to build up Lashley as the Royal Rumble winner, but also protect him as he has this mid-card belt? The only response would be for have him drop the belt at some point to somebody in some fluky way. But I would love it if Lashley won. I just don't think that they see Lashley in the way that most people do. And I don't think that they would actually go with Lashley for WrestleMania. Another one is Sheamus. Sheamus has this long-running storyline with Drew McIntyre. They've talked excessively about their friendship between the friendship between McIntyre and Sheamus. So you could have Sheamus win the Royal Rumble and maybe question whether he's going to challenge McIntyre or he's going to challenge Roman, and build that story between McIntyre and Sheamus. That could actually be very good. It could actually be very interesting. Sheamus also is a former world champion, and he doesn't really need to win the Royal Rumble. Sheamus could easily win the Elimination Chamber or a gauntlet or a number 1 contenders tournament or something like that, even though he's kind of been on the downslide. Now, this is why he's in my dark horse list. It's because he has been on the downslide, and he's been sort of lost in the shuffle for several months. So it doesn't really matter because it's not like you have to be on the biggest winning streak of all time in order to win the Royal Rumble. But to me, it just seems like it would piss a lot of people off if Sheamus won. It wouldn't be anticlimactic. It would be interesting, depending on how it was done and how it was put together. But I don't think it would be satisfying. I think that we do want Sheamus versus McIntyre at some point. Is WrestleMania at that point? I don't know. Similarly, Jinder Mahal. Now, Jinder Mahal has been, I don't think it's going to happen. That's why he's in the long shot category. But Jinder Mahal also has this feud or this friendship with Drew McIntyre going back to their days of 3MB. And according to dirt sheets and Drew McIntyre himself, there was supposed to be a Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal feud by now. But Jinder was, having a hard time coming back from his injury. Now he's going to be at the Superstar Spectacle, so he will be back by the time of the Royal Rumble. Will he be ready, and is he a WrestleMania-worthy opponent? And that is the question. Jinder Mahal has been pushed as a WWE champion. He's been a top guy before. He and McIntyre want to work together. WWE just seems not really to mind doing the 3MB stuff. So, but it's a question of whether that's a WrestleMania match or not. That's kind of the question. You know, you could easily do that match in the middle of June or in the middle of August, and it'll be just fine. I'm not one of those people that hate Jinder Mahal. I think that he was very presentable as a champion. I think that he was good in that role. His matches left some to be desired, but I mean, come on, it's not really a work rate role anyway. It's a representative role. So I don't know. I don't think it's likely that Drew McIntyre will end up wrestling Jinder Mahal, and it wouldn't make any sense for Jinder Mahal to wrestle Roman Reigns. So that's pretty much out. So then you also got Braun Strowman. So Braun Strowman has been out with injury for a long time. Braun's last real match was against Roman Reigns. So you could do Roman and Strowman, where, you know, Roman was the one who injured Strowman, and maybe he's going to come back and get his revenge. I think that the internet would not be happy with Braun Strowman. Let's put it like that. But I think the wider audience would be cool with it. You know, also, Strowman versus McIntyre could be fun. These are two guys who won their titles on the same night. You could tell that story, that both of them were the kind of the guys who were pulling the company during the pandemic. So you could do that. But I don't think that, you know, you kind of want to go that route. And yes, I remember that Braun Strowman was in the Survivor Series, but I meant like his last main event run. So, but, you know, when you look at Strowman, he's a guy physically. It would make sense for him to win the Royal Rumble. He's a giant. But it will also, you know, be kind of anticlimactic because, you know, giants winning the Royal Rumble is anticlimactic. Unless you book them to be the underdog, you know, or something to that effect. You give them a real challenge near the end, like when Undertaker won. And he had that extensive thing with Shawn Michaels. So there's also some other dark horses, you know, Cesaro, Nakamura, not likely at all that they're going to be in the match even long, let alone win it. So I don't really see how they could possibly win. But I think of the guys that I picked out, that there's 5. You know, Daniel Bryan, Keith Lee, Big E, Randy Orton, and The Fiend. I think that one of those 5 men are going to end up being the winner of the Royal Rumble. I would definitely be surprised if it was anybody other than one of those 5. If you forced me to make a choice, I would choose Big E. But I would also really, really, really enjoy Keith Lee. Personally, that's a personal choice. I think that the wider wrestling community would galvanize around Big E if he was to win the Royal Rumble. But just me personally, I think Keith Lee would be better in the role. I think Keith Lee versus McIntyre again, even though they just had that match, is a big marquee match. I also think the idea of Keith Lee versus Roman is great. You know, that's a good feud. It's something that's never been done before. It'll be fresh. You know, it can go back to Survivor Series 2019, I believe it was. You know, or was it 2019. You know, you could lean back on that. So there's some history there. But you also have Daniel Bryan, who they're pushing as sort of the front runner. And knowing this is going to be his last hurrah, is they going to spin the Royal Rumble saying, okay, goodbye to Daniel Bryan. And this is going to be his last run through WrestleMania. Could be interesting. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. I thank you guys again. You spread the good word of 3 Count Commentaries by using the hashtag 3 Count Commentaries. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, shine light. I know what that's like.